Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to whomever is out there and wherever you may be. Welcome to the Marketing Evolution webinar today, a quick solutions overview, looking specifically at some capabilities that we're bringing to market that address some of the more modern challenges that marketers face, how we identified those, and looked at bringing features and capabilities to market to solve specifically for those. It's going to be about a 20-minute overview today, a little bit of slideware, and then a little bit of demo. Before we get started, a little housekeeping. Everyone will be on mute, but we're happy to answer questions at the end. If you do have those questions, please type them into the Q&A box, and we will be sure to address those. Great, so today it's myself, Javier Saenz. I head up our sales group as well as solutions engineering team. And today we're gonna hear from Imran Khan, who heads up our solutions group and will be providing the demo. So with that, first, a little bit about us and sort of what are the motivations behind the Marketing Evolution platform and what we do. I'll just kind of pick out some of the highlights here. When we sit down, we think about what are the capabilities that are important for the market, some of the tenets that we drive. We are a closed loop marketing platform. We develop and automate everything from the data ingest, so we have the proper data to inform the models, the data preparation, the quality control around that data, ensuring that we have representative, high quality data to push into the model. So all of your media exposures, first party data, third party data, the data that's so valuable and available in the marketplace, resolving that to identity, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means here today, bringing in attitudinal and behavioral insights, meaning we can address questions of people's behaviors. What are they doing after they've been exposed to media? And then their attitudinal, how are they feeling, right? Typically sort of brand health type metrics. So we can do both. And we do performance reporting, forward-looking optimization, as well as activation. So complete from bringing in all of the data, informing the model, and then outputting in an actionable way to integrated platforms so you can actually activate the buy directly from the platform. And then this cycle begins again as the data feeds back in from those exposures that we just put into the marketplace. So that's what we do. We build this closed loop solution. We make it available all the time in real time, so you can use it when it's most beneficial. And when we do that, of course, we do it in the context of the marketplace. So when we think about, what are the challenges and where have we been as an industry, clearly there's MTA. They have their challenges. There's a historical orientation and it tends to be very backward looking with historical data. You can imagine in the COVID world, the rapid changes in both consumer behavior and media, that type of long look back window that moves very, very slowly, not as beneficial as something that moves more quickly, which is one of the things that we can do. So it's aggregated, it's very slow. MTA brings some nice functionality to generally a digital world, but it tends to be somewhat siloed in that respect. And there is a lot of uncertainty going forward with respect to the availability of data, the cookieless future, and so forth. How are those going to resolve? And then it's really not representative of the full market because it is a digital-oriented perspective. So we want to take a more holistic perspective as we develop our solutions. So with that, what are the things that we're going to focus on today? We have a lot to talk about on the platform. We're not going to try to do it all today. We'll have a series of webinars to cover more and more of what it is that we do. But the key features we're going to talk about in terms of meeting our current marketing requirements: flexible data ingest. We developed a platform that can bring data in at any granularity. We can resolve down to person level if we have the luxury of that data, and that's great. If we don't, and aggregate data is what's available, we can use that. We can use a combination. We can have aggregate sales data or web activity data, and then person level conversion and sales data. And we can reconcile those and use these different granularities to inform the model. So very flexible in the architecture there, which allows us to configure that data ingest specific to the needs of the client. What else have we developed recently? Proprietary consumer choice model. This is a huge departure and massive advancement over traditional sort of regression type models that have been used for decades in this capacity. And what's great is we use a single model across all the data to inform the recommendations that we then make around the media plan. So rather than combining or joining different regression models and trying to reconcile those, or a top down and a bottom up and meet in the middle type approach, we have a single model. We can feed it different data at different granularities, like I mentioned, and it's going to bring you the information you need. So that single consumer choice model where we can determine the effect that media and creative has on consumer behavior That's ultimately what we're doing. We're modeling consumers and their behavior, not necessarily data per se. And so that consumer choice model is a big differentiator for us. And then finally, today, we're going to get a good look at our new user experience and user interface. We've designed from the ground up a new look to the platform that reflects the workflow that marketers need, and it aligns to the way you do business. It is also a fairly configurable environment with a dashboard and different visualizations and so forth, so there's a lot of flexibility there as well. And with that, we're going to see Imran provide that demo in a few core areas, talking in general about media planning. How do we set up a media plan and then run different scenarios against that, different budget levels and so forth. Some really cool features there in terms of how you can develop your media plan, and then the creative insights that come out of that as well. So with that setup, Imran, over to you for the demo.
Thank you, Javier. Just going to quickly fire up the engines here and toggle over to the demo. Javier, could you confirm that you see my dashboard on the screen?
Confirmed.
Perfect. Hello, everybody, and I'll be taking over the demo portion. And as the previous slide suggested, it'll take me about an hour to go through every single feature. So I'll focus on maybe our 3 most important and most popular use cases. A lot of our clients want to utilize our media reporting feature to get a more retrospective measurement in terms of understanding in the last campaign that was run, which media investments across which partners and channels drove the highest amount of conversions. First, we'll start there, then we'll move on to the scenario planning to create different scenarios to really bring to life the power of our optimization software. And then towards the end, we'll end off with a look at some of our creative insights that are possible to do with our consumer choice framework. So let's kick off with the media reporting tab first. So pretty straightforward workflow. We're going to first select the date range for the reporting. It's a very dynamic calendar. So those of you who are looking to do more tactical reporting at a weekly or bi-weekly basis can select the appropriate date range. Those users who are tasked with more strategic lookbacks, looking at a quarterly or even a yearly performance, can again select the desired date range. So for my demo, let me go ahead and select perhaps the entirety of Q4 of 2019 to start with. And once I do that, I'm essentially saying, okay, I want to look at all the conversions which took place in this date range. Now, speaking of conversions, as Javier indicated, we have a full funnel measurement system. And what that means is that we have the ability to configure our measurement to understand what is the impact of marketing on upper funnel metrics like brand attitudinal shifts, alongside more interim actions like a website visit or a website activity, all the way down to that bottom of the funnel eventual sales transaction which took place. So for our demo, let me go ahead and maybe pick out sales. And then third step is to select the dimensions in our reporting. So the most basic form is of course going to be based on media type, which means that we want to understand, did digital drive more sales conversions for me, or did TV? Within digital, did native do better than say video? So that's certainly the starting point. But what I also want to show you is really the power of being able to add much more breadth and depth. By breadth, I mean being able to capture multiple geographies, which is represented by the market. So I'll go ahead and select that. And also want to show you more depth, meaning how are the different media vehicles, which is another name for the media publishers and maybe TV stations, which are represented within the media type. So let me go ahead and select vehicle as well. So you get a good look at breadth and depth. I'm going to hit the submit button. And in real time, this actually is going to query our modeling server, which I'm just going to quickly reboot so that it has the freshest data here. So just to recap, we're going to look at all the sales transactions which took place in the entire Q4 of 2019. And once this loads up, I'm going to go ahead and reselect the market level lens alongside the vehicle lens. So let's try that again. Hopefully Murphy's Law does not come true the second time around. So yeah, as I was saying, this software essentially will query our modeling server in real time. So typically in about 15 seconds or less, we're able to extract the conversion data, which will populate in a data table that is fully configurable and exportable. So in about 3, 2, 1, this should pop up right now. There we go. All right, so here we have a list of all the media types alongside their the cost, impression, and conversion data. So we have as you see, a very diverse arsenal of media types ranging from digital video, some offline channels like direct mail and television, which further can be unpacked into the markets in which they ran. So we have the ability to break the reporting up into the national campaigns alongside some of the more DMA specific reporting, which then further can be unpacked into the different media vehicles, which is just another name for partners. So this could be your video publishers, this could be your direct mail vendor alongside different TV stations. So certainly the most important metric here is going to be conversions. I was just able to reorder that. So we look at the highest and the best performing conversions first. So what we're looking at here is basically just to reiterate, this report is telling us which specific media type drove the highest amount of sales conversion. So it's sort of like a media contribution report. And because we have this for all different media types, it certainly enables somebody who's tasked with reallocating and understanding performance of multiple channels. But at the same time, for someone who's more of in a more of a channel manager seat, they can deep dive into only specific channels. For example, maybe I'll take digital video as an example. So let's maybe zoom in, and somebody who starts with just digital video performance can then use the same report, filter it to just these three partners, and then understand, okay, how am I doing in terms of both effectiveness, which is really the number of conversions, but also in terms of efficiency, which is if I overlay cost and my conversions, what is the cost per conversion, to understand which partners are giving me the best bang for the buck. So all this information is certainly is available on screen, but is also exportable in a CSV format. So if you choose to do your additional analytics analysis on the platform or to export it into pivot table, they both are possible. But my hope is that with this, we have a good look at how we're able to provide both the breadth across different media channels, as well as the depth in terms of going deeper into the different geographies, the different vehicles. And while I didn't run the report, we also have the ability to show the results based on, say, placement IDs for display or even search keywords. So hopefully this gives us a good look at media reporting. I'm going to jump over to the media planning lens right now, so we can look at another popular use case, which is to actually create a new scenario to enable the answer to the big question. Okay, what's the optimal allocation for my next campaign? So for that, let's go ahead and create a new scenario. Similar workflow, pretty straightforward. We'll just go ahead and create maybe a test scenario name. We can select the brand from the list, probably more useful for large organizations which have multiple brands. They can decide which brand they want to align the campaign towards. And then, of course, the most important one is to select, okay, what's the campaign really trying to do for you? What is the KPI? Is it intended to have a sales impact, or is it intended to have a more mid-funnel web visit? This dashboard can also be configurable to include a brand KPI. That was the key focus. But what's also great about our solution is that we can also enable multiple KPI. And what that means is that we can tell you what's the media plan that's going to drive a blended KPI lens. And the reason for that is that we feel like these KPIs are not necessarily mutually exclusive. When a consumer sees an ad, some of them certainly have a brand impact, like they probably drive awareness of the product, but they also may spur a particular mid-funnel activity like a website visit. So we want to give the marketer the ability to say, look, I want to have a campaign which gives me the best of both worlds. So all you got to do is use a slider and decide, well, do you want to have your campaign to be more geared towards having a sales focus? If so, just move the sliding scale over. And you just got to make sure that both the different KPIs add up to 100. So we have the ideal blend of the two. So moving this over here, we have a campaign which is more focused on sales, but still has an impact in terms of web visits. Once you do that, we go to the flighting section, which enables you to decide, is this going to be something which I want to run over the course of the next month, the next quarter, what have you. Maybe I'll pick September as, maybe like a proxy for a back to school campaign in the fall. So I'll pick the entire month of September here. And then the final step is to decide what is going to be the budget for the campaign. You could choose to input a number here, whether it's, say, I'll just take 5 million as an example. Or what's also a great advantage for us is that we actually have the ability to input what we call like a goal seek. So because some marketers may have a pretty fixed budget that they have to work with, but then in other cases, they may be told by their stakeholders, like, look, guys, I want you guys to hit a specific growth target. I want you to grow the number of conversions by 20%. Then you can actually input that specific conversion number here, and we're able to back calculate for you what is the least amount of media spend that's required to hit that target. So it's a pretty brilliant efficiency play, because it's quite possible that you don't need to use your entirety of your media budget. You could probably just spend less and meet your goals using this feature. But just for our demo purpose, I'll go back to our budget feature. I'll select 5 million as the budget for that month-long campaign. And then we come to that final step, which is really where a lot of the iteration happens, because here's where we'll apply all of the real world constraints that really are a big feature of media planning. So just to make this a bit more rich, I'm going to go ahead and add in a few more dimensions. Perhaps I'll add in the vehicle lens alongside the platform. So what we now see is a list of the media types ranging from display to search. We have the different platforms that we can modify, whether it's a mobile investment or a desktop. And then, of course, you have a list of all the different partners. The three main types of constraints that are certainly most popular for the users are, one is to apply overrides for the CPM. Let's take an example of, say, maybe the back to school campaign. It's quite possible that some maybe search vendors say, look, this is a time of certainly high demand, so the CPM may go up. So you can actually go ahead and manually override the CPM information yourself. It's quite possible that your media agency may have an agreement with a particular publisher saying, this is we have a certain spend commitment, which requires that you spend a minimum of a specific amount. So what you can do then in that case is, if the current partner says, look, you can't spend less than 400K, you can go ahead and lock that specific section. So that will block our min and max threshold to be literally the same number as the 400K number. So this way, we're able to, again, all the kinds of constraints that are applicable in the real world, we want to make sure that our plan is most reflective of that. And there certainly is an iterative process where we will work closely with your agency to make sure that this plan is as reflective of reality as possible. So once you're satisfied with all the changes, you can go ahead and hit the Run Plan button. Now, in the interest of time, generally speaking, this can take up to 5 minutes, because we are actually in real time incorporating all the information about hundreds and thousands of individual placements. We're taking into account all of the various constraints and the cost information that you put in, while also taking into account things like the saturation curves and diminishing returns, because it's quite possible that something which worked for you in the past, like a particular maybe digital video display, rather a video placement, probably is at the end of its life cycle, right? You can't maybe benefit from putting any additional dollars in that. So for that, we want to make sure that we can account for all the individual response curves by placement. So all those things come together in the form of our media planner. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to go ahead and load up a previously run scenario so we can see what does the output of this optimization look like. So I'll pick something which is similar to what we just ran in our demo. I'll pick something which has a blended objective of partially sales, partially web visits, and a budget that's the same number. I put in 5 million in my scenario as well. So let's go ahead and load up the scenario and look at what does the optimized plan look like compared to the base plan. This should be loading up a couple of visuals to give us a sense of what's changed pre and post. And then finally, we have this summary view, which shows us what is the calculated budget versus the optimized. And the calculated is just another name for the base plan. And this is what I've sort of put it as my desire, which is to spend $5 million over the course of a month-long campaign, which has a blend of visits as well as sales, and what is the resultant marketing impact. Now, the real power of our optimizer comes to fruition on this column, which is under optimize, where for the same budget, no net change in media investments, same duration and the same objective, we've actually been able to identify a increased marketing impact, roughly 8% higher impact for the same amount of media spent at actually a lower cost per impact. Certainly giving you a plan which is giving you more bang for your buck. This certainly is just the tip of the iceberg, because the real value is when you scroll down and see all the different dimensions that I showed earlier. We'll look at the platform and vehicle. So we can see it by placement, by partner, what other specific reallocation recommendations that we are putting forth. Just to make this a bit more readable, I'm going to go ahead and just deselect some columns. So we are focusing exclusively on spend. And this, you'll see how the plan here now comes to life when you see the delta in spend. So you're seeing that a couple of placements or partners have been divested. They've actually been, the optimizer has deemed that it's a better use for those dollars, or perhaps in a different platform or a different partner, one which is going to keep your budget the same, which is $5 million, while resulting in a increased marketing impact. And this certainly is a very dynamic process which allows you to create multiple scenarios at different budget levels, perhaps for different KPIs. And certainly we work closely with you to understand which of your multiple scenarios is probably most feasible for you to implement in the market. And of course, based on the actual in-market results, what we want to do is repeat the process of ingesting that data and playing it back to you in that reporting function, which really brings to fruition the point Javier made about this being a closed loop system, which should hopefully in time create a virtuous cycle, which helps you learn from doing these test and learns, but also earn more money by eliminating wasteful spend and moving your dollars to placements which are actually delivering higher ROI for you. So hoping that gives you a good look at the media planner. And let's wrap up with the final section, which is the insights, which really is utilizing all the data that we're sitting on, right? Ours is a big data platform that has information on hundreds of thousands of platforms alongside consumer level information, as well as the impact measurement. And what we can do is, in addition to reporting and planning, actually visualize these insights for you. And one of our most popular visualizations is a creative heat map, because our modeling process is looking at how do different types of consumers, when they see different kinds of placements and creatives, what kind of impact does it have on that KPI? So in the example you're seeing on your screen is an example of a display creative heat map, where we have 4 different creatives, 1, 2, 3, 4, alongside the various dimensions of audience attributes. We partner with major demographic partners like the likes of Experian or Equifax to pull in demographic data alongside more segmentation and psychographic data. So we're able to report along many, many dimensions. But taking into account one example from an age perspective, what we're seeing here is that Creative 2 seems to really over-index with this age group of between 50 and 59 in terms of having a sales impact. So this can help the optimizer figure out that, if your next campaign is skewed towards a 50+ age group, the optimizer knows based on past measurement which creative rotation should actually be implemented in that plan. Similarly, if I scroll down to the gender breakup, we're seeing that Creative 4 actually over-indexes with males. And again, if the campaign has more of a skew towards one gender or the other, the optimizer again knows whether it should pick Creative 2, which works really well for females, or should it pick Creative 4, because this actually is based on actual measurement of how different demographic groups have actually driven a KPI impact, which in this case is sales. The same information is available for all other visual mediums, such as television as well as video. But this is, again, just a quick example of what it looks like from a creative heat map lens. I think this concludes all that I think I have time to show at this stage. I'll hand it over to Javier to bring us back to the closing section. So I'm going to jump back to.
We just have a closing slide there. So thank you, Imran. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. I don't see any questions at the moment in the question box, so we'll defer those. If there are any, please feel free to reach out to us. marketing@marketingevolution.com is an email you can reach us at. We'll be happy to arrange to answer any questions, provide further demos. Hopefully this gave you a feel for some of the new things that we're bringing to market to address some of the modern challenges that we face in this space, whether it means uncertainty around data availability, granularity, sensitivity around PII, things like that, but leveraging the data that is available, whether that's going to change in the future and how it may change, we're ready for that. We're using a single model to develop our recommendations. So you've got consistency, reliability, and again, that dynamic capability around ingesting different types of data into the model, and an elegant user interface that allows users to log in, run those scenarios, present their findings, compare that to historical reporting and perspectives. So you've got the context of the past and what has worked combined with the power of the model to make recommendations and optimize for the future. Just that perfect balance. So I want to thank everyone for the time and have a wonderful day. Thank you all.